continuing to fight anymore. As I said, life is precious. I don't know how much longer my father has. You know, he won't speak to me because of this security stuff. I've shared some of it with you today. A lot of it exists out there, whether people choose to ignore it or not. You know, I mean, no, I don't think he would ever want to talk about it. I think he would just push it aside, and the argument will continue to be this is a government decision. It may well be a government decision, but how did they reach that decision? You know, we've never ever been allowed or offered to make my own representations.
Labour just clung on in 3 of the mayoral races, and they're down around 60 councillors so far, and the way it's shaping up is almost certainly more misery for the Tories to come. Definitely intended later this afternoon in places like Oxfordshire, Gloucestershire and Shropshire. They're looking at our election programme, and Reeta Chakrabarti is here to bring them to us. Reeta. As they come in. And with all the complicated numbers on the way, thank goodness Sir John Curtice, the professor, the nation's favourite number cruncher, is with us for the duration on this BBC election special.
A set of local elections that were always going to be difficult for us.
OK, well, let's go straight to Sir John Curtice. We're going to pick up with John about what the actual cost might be in terms of seats for the other parties at the expense of reform. John, we've got a lot more data than the last time we spoke, although the picture's not yet complete. But can you give us a sense of where the final tally might be heading for reform, what that blue surge, turquoise surge, sorry, I should say, what that might actually look like in terms of the turquoise tally?
Yeah, well, we've so far now had the declarations from about 400 of the 1,400 wards. So there's still a lot of data to go. But it's, I think, by this stage worth noting that Reform are so far winning more than half of all the seats that have been declared, and that lying underneath this is the fact that at 35%, that's just simply their share of the vote in all the wards that have been declared so far. They are as much as 11 points ahead of the Conservatives and even further ahead of Labour. Yes, it's true, as we were saying with quite considerable caution overnight, that particularly overnight, the places that were voting were particularly rather more pro-leave. And this is still somewhat true will be true of the whole set of these elections when we've got them all in. Or whether are the polls actually underestimating how strong Reform are?
OK, so John, thank you very much indeed for updating us on what might end up being really quite extraordinary numbers that may well in the end look even better for Reform in terms of council seats than we might have expected a few short hours ago when we started our election coverage. So we'll be watching the precise numbers very, very carefully as the tally goes up.
what change did we get, Laura? Well, we got net zero, some of the highest bills in the Western world. Plenty of people in County Durham mentioning how much they're struggling in that regard. Their council tax goes up and up and up, but are their services getting better, better, better? No. And the farmers' inheritance tax, people feel a deep connection and affiliation with their farms in their local communities. And then, of course, you mentioned it ad nauseum in this recording today, that the fact that pensioners, their winter fuel allowance has been cut, whilst we're spending £4 to £5 billion housing illegal asylum seekers. Everything that's happened to our country over the last 10 months was not in the Labour Party's manifesto for the most part. And that has been viewed as a betrayal of voters up here who are supposed to be Labour's heartlands.
Aaron Grimes, thank you very much indeed for joining us from County Durham, a newly elected Reform councillor there, who I think gets the prize for the biggest rosette of the day. Always something that I like to look out for during election programmes, but thank you very much indeed to him and for all the people who've given us their time in the last hour here on BBC Two, our guests round the country. We're grateful to them for their time. Just a brief time for final word with all of you round the and to remind our BBC Two viewers what the final tally is at this part of the day. So far, 5 there. The Conservatives losing 254 with 107. Labour losing 80 with 27. And the Lib Dems at 100 seats. Join us again in a couple of minutes over on BBC One.